This is a story about escaping terror.
Yeah, but back in those days, there were the cartel wars. So Cali was bombing Medellin, and where every morning, that's where the cartels would dump bodies, and you'd have military trucks just loading them up. That was the morning ride to school.
This is a story about new beginnings.
Let's go in search of a better life. And the difference was insane in terms of having peace of mind, tranquility, security, people that value life.
This is a story about creativity.
And some of the shows we've worked on, we recently did the SpongeBob movie for Netflix.
And most importantly, this is a story about family.
Having core values is the reason we've survived, and that comes, from my mom. She's involved in that aspect, or my father in a lot of ways. We respect their input quite a bit.
I'm your host, Luke Hanson McDonald. This is Beyond the Family Business Podcast. Let's jump into it. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you based now? And what do you do?
Sure, yeah, let's get it started. Thanks again for having me here. So I'm Juan Lopez. I'm from Colombia, Medellin, Colombia, but we're based here in Canada. Our offices are in Hamilton. We also have studios in Colombia, Chile, and in Spain.
And what do you do?
So we're a media company. We produce content for television and film. We focus mainly on children and family entertainment, mainly on animation, animated series, animated films.
Cool. And it's a family business. Which family members are involved in the business?
My brother, he's the one that got us into this world. He comes from that background, went to film school, studied here at Sheridan College, animation. He grew up in that world, and we saw an opportunity to come together and put a studio together, with his background in the industry, my background in business, and my sister's involved as well. She helps us on the people side, which is a huge component of our process. She's got a background in psychology, so we all kind of complemented each other from different areas. But yeah, very much so a family business.
Very cool. But also not a small business. How many people do you have worldwide?
Yeah, it's an elaborate process, right, to produce. So it takes a lot of people. So it's quite the scale. In Canada, we have just over 300 people, and rest of world, about another 200 people.
Awesome, man. And what do you do in the business personally?
I've worn many hats, as you can assume. Family businesses require that. I've been, head of finance. I'm currently the president. Working with my brother, who's the CEO, on business development, administration, on international businesses. Right now, I'm wearing that hat of the international business side. I'm actually spending a lot of time in Latin American offices, growing our operations there, building the market there. It's an interesting space there. So
yeah, very cool. All right, well, I definitely want to get back to that. But I guess my first question would be, so you started off in Colombia. You were born in Colombia. What led to you leaving Colombia and coming to Canada?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I was born in Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia, as I said, but I've lived most of my life in Canada. The reason we left, the first time I left, I was 8 years old. That was back in 87, 88, and we went to New York. And that was around the time when, in Medellin, I don't know if you know, you might be familiar. You saw.
Yeah, well, I went and visited you a year and a half ago. Yeah,
but back in those days, there were the cartel wars. Yeah. So Cali was bombing Medellin, and it was just a disaster, right? And we were able, thanks to my mom, her being so brave, we can't live like this. Let's go look for opportunity outside. We went to New York, did well. Country by that time, had stabilized, so we tried moving back to Colombia, this time in Bogota. But at that time, it wasn't the cartels anymore. It was the guerrilla and some other political issues down there. So again, we decided, you know what? We've got too much going on, too much to offer. Let's go in search of a better life. And then we heard about Canada and their animation industry, and my brother at that time was trying to find his way in this industry. As a creative, it's not easy in those days. But Canada did have a vibrant creative cluster. So we put our bets on that, and it paid off.
Yeah, no kidding. And not to go into too much excruciating detail, but you've shared some of the horrific stories of like your childhood memories of when Pablo Escobar was, really wreaking havoc on Medellin. Could you share sort of like what do you remember, and how old were you, I guess, first of all, when you left?
Well, the first time I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
But I still remember, up until the last day, it was bombs all the time. And the biggest one, if you've seen that Narcos movie or show on Netflix, when they bombed his house and his son became deaf and all that stuff, that one was fairly central in Medellin, and the radius of where it hit was crazy. We were sleeping and all the windows shattered, and as a reaction, an 8-year-old kid, I was able to like roll off the bed, get under the bed, go check on my parents. They had glass all over them. I've seen other like grenades, like people pulling up in a car and throwing a grenade into a house, and then things like that. Yeah, no, it was. That must
have been
traumatic unfortunate
at that age to see such violence.
Yeah, you definitely grow up with it. If you were around those days, you would see it. It was just too obvious, and it was everywhere, and sort of like what Mexico is now, which is unfortunate. Mexico is such a powerhouse, but these cartels, they just they don't listen to anything, and they grow so fast. There's so much money involved. They ruin all the opportunities for the country. Yeah. Luckily, it's not like that now. Yeah. Colombia has really reinvented themselves over the last 20 years, and it's actually one of the most interesting economies to go into Latin America. It's very respected amongst South American countries. Very smart people, very educated, good system. They've had a bad luck in that sense.
Yeah, no kidding. No, that's excellent to hear. And what was it like going from living in Colombia, especially during that time where it was so difficult, and then moving to North America or moving to Canada? What was your early memories of moving to Canada? Good
question, because that's where I saw trauma. I wouldn't necessarily identify trauma or like in that. It's just kind of life. But when I came here, and the kids, I guess, in high school, they would go out and to have parties in forests and parks and things like that. And at the beginning, I always feared, like, oh my God, is a gorilla around here? It's dark. Where they can come from? And obviously, that's ridiculous to even think about here, right? Yeah. So I realized I definitely had some trauma, and it took some years to just flush that out of my body. But that's the beauty of being here, and this is why we're so proud to be Canadian, and the opportunities we were given here starts with that, being able to clean my spirit from that side of the world, right? I acknowledge that exists, and to this day, I try and set up values for anybody around me, my family, that tries to navigate those waters and help the world get a little bit cleaner from that kind of those actions. But yeah, that was interesting. So Canada, the difference was insane in terms of having peace of mind, tranquility, security, people that value life. That was powerful for me.
Yeah, I could imagine. So can you tell me, what was the actual origin of Pipeline? When did it start, and how did it start?
Yeah, okay. So that was back in, officially incorporated, first day was in 2007. But this was always like my brother's dream, to have a studio one day. So he came here. He's about 10 years older than me. So when I finished school, I got a job in the Caribbean. I was living a pretty happy life. By that time, he had become the VP of operations at Nelvana, which is Chorus Entertainment's production arm. Youngest person to do it that fast. He was incredibly successful. And then he reached out to me because he was having issues with the way the industry was working here. Any production, he had to go to like 15 different studios. There wasn't studios, investing in building a turnkey solution, right? So he sent me information about the industry. I looked at the impact this industry has in Canada. Animation is a Canadian industry. We produce more animated content than any other nation in the world. And not a lot of people know that.
Yeah. I feel like very few people would realize that.
We own it, and I love promoting it. We don't do the best job promoting. We're very humble. I understand that. But things like this, when it's known, the world, it attracts a lot of opportunities, right? So yeah, I read all this stuff and the funding involved and how beautiful it is to create content that has an impact, especially at early ages, content with values is very important to us. So I left the Caribbean and my beautiful life there, and I came back, and, we're going on almost 20 years now, and
crazy.
Haven't looked back. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. And so when you started off, what were the first types of projects you would have been doing in the early days?
Well, we did good right off the bat. We did something. We came out with a big splash. Sheridan College, or Sheridan Institute now, is the world's best animation school, right? It's got other amazing programs, but in terms of animation, it developed the top curriculum in the world. CalArts and Sheridan, always, top schools for animation. So when we came, we made a proposal to the city of Oakville and Sheridan where we would set up our studio on campus. We were the first studio to be on campus. And this is a campus, part of it was, contributed by Disney, and it's going to make noise, right? Oh, there's a studio at Sheridan College. Obviously, it made a lot of noise. We were aggressive with that. We were close to the curriculum, close to research, the teachers. It's just a great environment for what we were doing. And we went after the top series at the time, which was the Backyardigans. I don't know if you remember that or.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a big, challenging CG project. Every episode was in a different world, so you have to create all that from scratch. Very demanding.
And who owns Backyardigans?
That's Nickelodeon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was their number one hit show, Emmys, the whole thing. It was an incredible show. So we launched with that, build our CG pipeline, immediately went and got a project that was in 2D. So we built our 2D pipeline, and then we created a hybrid
2D
CG.
meaning two-dimensional.
Correct, sorry, yeah. Two-dimensional, like The Simpsons and flat images versus CG, which typical Disney, Pixar
like
movies.
3D stuff, yeah.
And then we started playing with that and doing hybrids, and we started coming out with the first hybrid tools for CG and 2D that allow you to live in that same kind of space.
Cool.
So yeah.
That's very, very cool. So, and I assume the partnership you have with Sheridan and being on campus gave you a pipeline, no pun intended, of talent coming into the business too. I assume you got to see a lot of students that were promising, and hopefully you could recruit them, pretty much straight out of school.
Yeah, absolutely. That was our magic sauce. Accessing talent early, guiding them, bring them awesome co-op programs or just immersion programs, things like that. We had a lot of fun with that, but we also learned a lot about the curriculum, and we identified an issue Canada was going to have in terms of the market size. Population-wise, and the amount of work that's coming to Canada, it just wasn't matching up. So that's why we went internationally. And having the ability to understand the academic side, the training side, those skills required was key in us being able to expand in Latin America. We set up our own schools down there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So anyway, I'll come back to that. The next question I had was, so you mentioned briefly, you worked outside of the family business first, because there was no family business yet,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
Did you always want to work with your brother and work with your sister? Did you always want to be in a family business, or did that even cross your mind, I guess, when you were younger? Or, what was your thought on that?
Funny enough, not necessarily like a family business, but because we're this traveling family, wherever we go, we got to survive together. So we all complement each other. We know how to support each other. We're trying to survive and be successful. So we were always very close, regardless of where we were at. But I was off in a different career path completely, and building that for myself. And that wasn't the most comfortable because I was the first time one family member had left, and I was living away. So I wasn't necessarily looking to do that forever. I wanted us to be closer, but yeah, the family business was a bit of a surprise.
And you said you've almost or a few years away from your 20-year milestone, which is incredible for any business to last that long. And I always talk about on the show the complexities that come with family business. So when you make it that long in a family business, it's even more impressive. What advice would you have for people, that do work with their siblings? Like, what has been your secret sauce that's allowed you to find that complement with your brother and your sister, and you each find your own roles and make it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is very challenging. It requires a lot of maturity, as you know. Understanding each other's skills is important. Respecting each other's skills. Setting the right kind of governance, where how to communicate and is so vital. We all see things so differently and we have our own lenses. So yeah, empathy is key. But I think having core values is the reason we've survived. And that comes, from my mom. She's involved in that aspect. Or my father in a lot of ways. We respect their input quite a bit. Leave space to respect input from someone you all trust. In my case, it was my parents, which worked out great. But, advisors or consultants or whoever may provide you with that neutral voice to help you sort things out and you start growing with that, I think helps you set the right kind of structure and values to get through anything.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. We found the exact same thing where we have a third-party CEO in our family office who's been with us for a decade now, basically. And he is often that, unbiased, objective voice that sort of brings down the temperature and removes the family dynamics, to some degree. Obviously, family dynamics always happen, but I completely agree with you. That makes a lot of sense. That's great advice. And then how about as far as actually finding your individual roles? Was it obvious from day one that your brother was doing the creative and you were doing the business and your sister was focused on the talent or whatever the roles are exactly today? Was that obvious, or was that a bit of a fumbling?
Another good question. No, man, that was a mess. That was a bit of a mess. I was coming in terms of me just graduating, and yes, I had this background in finance, economics, business administration. So I took that on, obviously. And that's part of it. But, the business development side of it is so much fun. And my industry is just really, really interesting. We've got top-level technology, amazing creative talent. There's no limits, right? So you want to be a part of everything at all times. You're so engaged with the whole process. For the first 8 years, my brother wasn't at Pipeline. I didn't mention that earlier.
Oh,
he was still at Chorus, so...
And then so you
that wasn't the what I expected when I left the Caribbean to come here. I thought we were immediately all going to be together, but it wasn't possible because Chorus at that time, it was hard to replace Luis. They were growing so much. At that time, Chorus, Nelvana, was the top producing studio in the world. They had so much work going through. So, we love that company, right? It's important to Canada, and I don't know how many people know that. It's going through some tough times right now, but Chorus is important, and we owe a lot to them. The whole industry owes a lot to them. So he wasn't able to leave. So I had to take on a lot of more different roles. My sister came up a little bit later. We had a partner who was a producer and pretty much taught me the whole process of animation. And then when Luis did come, we restructured everything. It was a lot more set up, but still a lot of, working together, making all kinds of decisions. Titles are important, more so on the outside for clarity, who you're talking to, how you're working. But internally, we were just all doing a little bit of everybody's, core tasks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds familiar. I know with the multiple hats, what that feels like. So back to Pipeline. What has the business grown into now? You talked about the number of people that work there, but what would be some of the, other than Backyardigans, which was obviously a huge feat for that to be your first project, what are some of the other notable projects that you would have worked on over the years?
Yeah, the company's evolved a lot. We're the only one with the capacity that we have currently, so thanks to what we've done in Latin America. We're the only ones working with Latin America. We did the first co-production between Canada and Colombia. We've had a lot of fun growing that. We've become one of the top 5 studios in Canada in terms of our capacity.
Oh, amazing.
And some of the shows we've worked on, we recently did the SpongeBob movie.
Very cool.
For Netflix and Paramount.
And when you say you did that, what's that mean?
So that was that movie particularly requires a few components. There's a live action component, which somebody else does.
Yeah.
And those plates get integrated into what we do on the animation side. So we did the animation, modeling, lighting, all the technical components, the animation, rendering, and delivered.
For the whole movie?
For the whole movie, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was...
And is that your first, Hollywood scale film?
That's our first one, yes. We've done some in the past, but not at that scale. That's
cool.
A delicate brand, obviously. You got to respect when you're working on something like that. You got to respect all those values.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was switching over between Paramount and Nickelodeon, so there were some changes being done, little items creatively that were being done. So we were part of that transition, which was interesting.
Very cool.
We're currently doing Dora CG. Beautiful. It's coming out so gorgeous.
Is that for the TV show or a movie?
For the TV show.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's coming. Dora's coming back, and we're the ones responsible for making that happen.
Wow. Don't screw it up or my daughter will be very upset.
I know, man. Working with legacy brands like that, especially when you take it from its previous, format and bring it and change things like that, people may get offended, right? But no, it's coming out gorgeous. She was in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you saw. Oh, well, you might not get that in Canada. In the States, how they do the instructionals for the Super Bowl to teach people certain calls from the referee. So Dora was doing those. And
cool.
Their characters. It was fun. But yeah, man, we've worked on some pretty cool brands. Hotel Transylvania, the series.
Oh, wow.
We've done our own projects as well, our own IP. Our Paperport in Chile, that comes out of our studio in Chile. It's been the most successful, internationally successful series coming out of Latin America.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of awards.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So now you both produce content for other companies and you make your own content and your own IP.
Absolutely. So the company does a few things. We definitely do the production. The service side is key. We have our key partners established and we're loyal to that. And then it's key to have a strong service component. We have our IP, which is called Stingray. Everything is water theme, like ocean theme, even pipeline. I don't know if you know that the Bonsai Pipeline in Hawaii is where they say surfing got started. So everybody internally is like, there's surfers. There's a lot of values in surfing that we live off. But it's also the production pipeline, right? So yeah, Stingray is our IP division. Mm-hmm. Bonsai is our software division. We also create our own. We've been using our own production software since day one, building it and building it and building it.
Wow. So you guys have created your own software that you animate with.
Yeah.
That's
and
incredible.
How we communicate internationally with clients and how it manages everything. So much data. We've been building up on that. And now in the world of AI and limitless technology that you can do nowadays, we're taking that software to the next level. We're looking to commercialize that in the next year or so.
Wow. That is incredible. So that's a great caveat into AI. It's a world that I'm obsessed with, and I'm trying to figure out our own business path, into AI right now. People see a lot, especially about generative AI, so a lot of stuff to do with animation or image creation and stuff like that. How do you think AI is going to impact your industry?
Yeah, that's every industry, but my industry specifically has already been impacted. I don't know if you saw the strikes last year in the U.S., the actor strikes, and which affected animation, writers, everybody involved. And a lot of that had to do with how the big media companies are going to manage AI, and taking people's work from those data sets and all that stuff. So that's still in conversation, and it's going to evolve. But at least there's a lot of respect, and I like seeing that because the artist does need to be respected. They mean the world, and we need to protect that creative capacity that they bring to the whole process. But technology, I don't think, can be ignored. We have to see what this is about, understand it, work with it. I know internally our artists are using it, for referencing and for just enhancing their process, right, at the moment, from the artistic side. It's got a lot of cool tools, as you may have seen, in terms of visual outputs, narratives, script writing, and some of them actually produces the whole thing for you in a lot of ways, right? So it's something to watch out for. In our process, we're evaluating how it could be, like I said, enhance the process, enhance people's time.
It's a tool.
It's a tool in the end. And on the other side, on the administrative side, we see a lot of potential. The software I was mentioning, Bonsai, that's where we're putting a lot into this, helping us really understand production with all that information that we have, understand people's capacities, who might need help, and project a lot of that. It'll cut time, budgets. It's definitely going to have an impact. And right now, that's what we need.
So it's going to be quite disruptive for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's an obvious statement because it's going to disrupt so many parts of the world. One of the things that I've read a lot about or heard from other people that are implementing AI right now is that it really is a tool that will hopefully reduce low value work that you're focused on, like that administrative burden as you're talking about, and give you more time on the value creation side. And I had another guest on here who is a hip hop artist, and he'd used AI to produce a bass line in one of his songs. And the main thing that we sort of discussed and what he brought up was, in the end, the authenticity of the artist still is more important. Like it's going to be a really disruptive tool and it'll make you more productive, but it can't replace that human creativity and that unique, creative perspective.
Completely agree. It won't replace that, and it shouldn't, right? I think we'll become a little mindless if we start thinking that that's what it's going to do. We got to work with it, and it's going to be fun for everybody. Life work quality balance, I think can be improved because of this. So yeah, I don't fear it. I'm excited for it. We've got our teams researching it. But cool. Yeah, that's the key message. It's not. I don't think it's going to replace that particularly. It's going to replace everything you want to replace.
Yeah, for sure. No, very cool. So you're spending a lot of time in Latin America, as you said. You're really leading that international business side. How can you contrast, the Canadian market and the Latin American market? Not that it's all one place, but the markets that you're in, Colombia and Chile and maybe Argentina as well to some degree. What's the big difference between working in those markets versus in the Canadian market?
Well, Canada is the leader, as I said. So it's really good to go in a position where you're a global leader to a region of the world where this industry doesn't really even exist, right? So you're basically creating jobs, creating an industry. So governments are very excited about it. We've changed a lot of things. We've done reforms, we've done funds, we've done a lot of fun stuff at that level that supports the underlying artists, which wasn't being recognized in these regions, right? So for all this time, those artists that had this drive had no support, were really building things out on their own, which is different from here, that you have such a robust industry, such a mature industry, and the artist, it's not that it takes granted, but has options, has opportunities, has skills, has schools, has technology, has all this accessible to them, right? So they're precise, they're specific, specialized in what they do. Over there, any opportunity is the golden ticket, right? So I come down there with, a mild opportunity just to kind of check it out, and they'll do anything, any piece of the process, learn anything. They're just so eager, so ambitious, so hungry, right?
Oh, wow.
There was a big difference in that sense. So
that's excellent. So it's you're finding a good partnership between your Canadian operations and Latin America.
Yeah. Our Canadian talent that goes down there, they work down there for months or they go for training programs. They love it. They come back. They don't realize how important what they're doing is to them. It's like people cry, their parents come to the school and say thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, very
It's just
cool.
so rewarding.
Yeah. It must be incredibly rewarding for you, having to leave your home as a kid and for your family as a whole. I mean, your brother's 10 years older than you, so he would have been 18 when you were 8, and that much more impactful on him, right?
Yeah.
So it must be pretty incredible and fulfilling for you and your family that you're now going back and helping be part of that new success story of Latin America. You're creating jobs, you're working with the schools, all those things you just said. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that feels good. That feels really good. It was an unexpected part of my life, but it's going back there and being able to share a little bit of the successes we've had in Canada with Colombia and Latin America is incredibly rewarding. That's real passion right there. That's when I started really getting engaged and falling in love with what this industry is. I'm not necessarily a creative person. Mm-hmm. I landed into this, but then I started finding what is my passion in this, and I'm all in, right? I love that part of it.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So what's really incredible is, you're doing all of this great work within your business and, a lot of aggressive growth. You're taking on bigger and bigger projects, et cetera. But you also have, a beautiful family that you've obviously, you spend a great deal of time and really, your family of your brother and your sister and your parents, but then also your own, direct family of your wife and your two beautiful kids. How do you find that balance as a parent or a family member and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that was a challenge. That was when my son's 9, my daughter's 5. I've been married going on 15 years now, and it's tough, but I love being in a family. I love having a family. I love my family. So I guess this is a lesson I learned in the Caribbean, really, to really set time for yourself and what's important to you personally outside of work, and really learn to use time, be organized. What means something to you, you gotta work for it, right? In the MBA program, for example, one of the top lessons was, man, there's a lot of time out there if you use it wisely, and I do. I spend as much time as I can with my kids. I've learned a lot from them in terms of my pace of life and the pace of life I need to have with them so that they can grow up, with confidence, safe, and all that stuff. You really got to bring it down and just enjoy their pace of life, their timing in life, right? And that transcends into my work life and just pace it all differently, right? How I negotiate, how I manage, difficult situations. I do it all now with a different pace, which is, I feel like I'm ahead of time. I feel like sometimes I'm beating time, which is impossible, but I feel like at least I'm a little bit more in control and stuff's not just happening to me. I'm trying to keep up, right?
Yeah. That's incredible advice. You're absolutely right that since I've had kids, like it's complete, and I think COVID slowed me down a lot too, like being stuck at home, and it just made me reevaluate where I'm spending my time. And now I try to be a lot more intentional about, do I know what my balance of time is? Like, where am I? Because wherever I spend time is what's going to prosper, and whatever I ignore or neglect is what's going to create problems. And so, like, you better be focused on the things that really matter to you, like your family, like your, friends, your business, et cetera. And so, no, that's excellent advice. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Last question. You do have, two brilliant, beautiful kids, and
Thanks,
you've worked in a family business for, much of your life now, or your professional life. Do you want your kids to join the family business, or do you want them, to do their own thing?
I would. My preference, my instinct is that they do their own thing, that I'm able to support that and be successful on this side and give them access to any opportunities. That's probably what I would prefer, expand. I just always think we're going to be connected somehow, regardless. It's all part of the family business, let's call it. But if they go and do their own thing, I'll support that. I'm versatile in any business, right? I'll guide that, I'll support that, or whatever they want to do. I'm good with, as long as they're just doing it with passion. That would be a blessing if they find something that they can do with passion and they're not forced into some sort of situation that they're not enjoying, right? My business is a lot of fun, so I'm sure they're gonna work there at some point and get engaged and do whatever department sparks their interest, and I want to provide that for them. And I do teach them a lot about what we do. From the earliest age, they see our shows, they've been to the studios, they meet the artists, they see the process, and eventually they'll be more part of the business, maybe joining some discussions. I'm looking forward to that, just letting them decide, but give them access to everything.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. A lot of the time, so I always ask this question, and you get a wide variety of answers, but the core, or the thread that goes through all of them is always, parents want their kids to do what they love. They want them to follow their passion. They don't want to see them forced into a situation. But I have also, personally, I've experienced this to some degree, and I've seen this with some of my other guests, is you can also have the other extreme where parents push the kid to go do their own thing, and they don't give them the opportunity to join the family business because they're worried about it being forced on them. But, I think it's really smart that you're allowing your kids, they're learning the business already, and, hopefully they'll work in the business, even if it's while they're just young or whatever.
Right. And
they can almost decide for themselves, do they like it or not? Because, I work for my family, and it's incredibly fulfilling, but up until I was 24, 25, I didn't. I worked with my brother, but I didn't work with my dad or anything. And it was just not really, I guess, a thing that was pushed as an option to me. And I shouldn't say that I didn't feel like I didn't have the option, but I wish that I'd been more engaged by my parents into the family business at a younger age. And because I loved it. I really love working in my family business, and I feel like that's a great thing even if it's only for a part of their childhood, it's a great way for them to learn business, to understand how entrepreneurs work, et cetera. So I really applaud you for taking that approach.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a unique opportunity. I would feel like I missed out not giving them access to that, for sure.
100%. Cool. Thank you so much for taking the time, buddy.
Thanks really again for having me. It's
Absolutely.
Fun.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and share with other business families or family businesses that you may know. Thanks.